I'm trying.
Absolutely. You know,
Thank you.
if you work within the system, I'm not proposing that, but
Yes.
more power to you, you know, to work right within your family, the farm that's already there, convincing Papa, the workers, the people that are there, make it work. And what you came back to is that a lot of it they had already been doing.
Exactly. Thank you.
So I lived in Arizona for a while. That's my disclaimer. My daughter was born there,
Done.
right down at the very bottom where there was a lettuce on your map in Cochise County.
Yes.
Right by Nogales. And down in that area we had issues, similar issues with farm workers that we do here in Southern California
Yes.
and most of California. And I'm just going to throw out there from my food access and food security perspective that I'm hoping that your sustainability plan will eventually involve your farm workers' rights and
Yes.
living wage and things like that.
Well-
And I'm not going to ask you that question because I don't want to put you on the spot.
No,
but-
not at all. I mean, that is a portion, the community building, the community that we're in, Tolleson, is a low-income community. We've been there since 1970. A lot of the programs that we do, because we're so thankful for that neighborhood, are community and worker supporting. A great thing about Evercrisp, and I would say about most small companies, is you have a very loyal workforce. People have been working there for 30, I was the first hire since the 90s, I think. Like people, and we have a labor issue. And unfortunately, a lot of that is, it's political. And it's something that's tying our hands. We are worried about harvest operations. We are worried about having enough people to employ, let alone to give a fair wage. So it is certainly a portion of it. And actually, I think I convinced, I'm not sure, it goes through in the next fiscal year, but I do believe that all the harvesters have a raise for the next year because I actually worked with quality control for harvest and I felt that it was important. So yes, we're addressing it. It's in the portion.
Awesome.
So I actually worked in agriculture in San Diego County for several years recently. And so the company I worked for decided that solar was not economically feasible.
Right.
As far as our cold chain management and
Yes.
all of the coolers they need to run and just, the massive dependency on the grid.
Yes.
So is that something that you looked at on your farm?
It's something that I looked at in terms of energy use and doing the emissions inventory. It's something that we've thought about addressing before. Like you said, it's a capital issue. As a small company, we don't have the capital to be able to power a cooler on all solar. After this, once I graduate, I'm hoping to pursue grants actually. I'm going to look around for a grant thing because I really don't know how to address that otherwise. Something that we're very interested in but currently don't have the capital to pursue.
And your state apparently is not helping you with that. State of Arizona.
Yeah, they're not going out of their way.
Yeah.
So I'm going to see what I can do.
Well, and then there's, farmers in general that produce our food are considered specialty crops by the USDA. And, that's just the bizarreness of our federal agriculture policy. And I think definitely those of us working in the food field can help on that front and to help you get infrastructure that you need. Because to me, it's not the specialty crops. Ethanol should be a specialty crop. Food that I need to eat to survive should not be considered specialty.
There's a lot of antiquated
Yeah.
subsidies and policy as far as agriculture is concerned. Certainly.
Specialty.
That's all.
I know the area very well where your farm is, and you're in Arizona State country, right, or university? Which one? Arizona State.
Arizona State, we're about
Arizona State.
40 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, Arizona State has a corridor, an incubator corridor, not far from you, where they're looking to partner with ag in sustainable projects. So it's something you may want to tap into because masters and PhD students have to fulfill.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's awesome.
Exactly. So that's a good place to tap into resources that don't come with a salary, but they get it
That
in other
have
ways.
the not, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a big
great
economic
resource.
development push between ag and the and Arizona State around enterprise, particularly with the ag being the.
My lucky,
and
my
workers- yeah.
fabulous fiance over there.
Oh, okay, hi.
It's in the Sustainable Engineering Program at ASU, so I'm planning
Okay,
on
so,
using him
yeah,
as a
you know
tool
they-
to access these resources.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
So cringe.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there at the final panel. I'm Mia Mayweather. This is Julia Casillas and Daryl Iranzia, and we'll be giving our capstone presentations. And like before, please hold your questions until the end. Thanks. So again, I'm Mia Mayweather, and for my capstone project, I've created public educational materials to support Green LA Coalition's water advocacy campaign. Green LA is a nonprofit working to promote a sustainable city of Los Angeles. Its water committee and its members recognize the long-term security of water supply as one of the most pressing issues the city faces. The committee organizes briefings for policymakers and public organizations who want to learn more about the local water issues and solutions. The materials that I've developed will aid in the committee's mission. So later this year, LA City Council will weigh in on a proposal from the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power, which is our utility company here, to increase our water rates. A portion of the rate increase will go to fund local water supply projects that are crucial to the process of meeting our local water targets. The investment that happens now will save both the city and ratepayers money in the long term and decrease our reliance on costly imported water. Because revenue from ratepayers will fund a portion of the initial investments that go in local water projects, it is imperative that the rate increases are justified through education and understanding. Through the public educational materials that I've created, my goal is to help Green LA to create informed ratepayers capable of advocating for our own improved water delivery system. Although the public will not vote on the proposed budget, we need to voice our support for the value of local water projects. When the City Council sees a demonstration of public support, the political will to vote yes to increasing local water projects will be strengthened. So I set out to make the educational materials accessible, appealing, and fun, hopefully, because let's be honest, water infrastructure doesn't exactly excite most people. So I developed an educational toolkit that features elements that provide varying levels of information and is suitable for a general public audience. The toolkit consists of an interactive map of local water projects by council district, a creatively designed brochure, a white paper, and an action kit that encourages, a resource directory that encourages action, and it connects you to local water programs. And eventually in summer of 2013, I would like to develop a website that hosts all of these materials in digital format. So I'm going to present the problems with the current water delivery system, and along with a survey of solutions. So Los Angeles is facing a decision that will determine where and how we will get our water for the next 30 years. So strategy one, we can keep the system that we have in place. This means that we will have no choice but to increase the amount of water that we will have to import. It's a broken system and only offers short-term solutions. So I'll provide some brief historical context. Early settlers of LA were able to rely upon local water primarily from the LA River. The population boom exhausted the local supply, creating the need to get water from other regions. And by 1913, the LA Aqueduct was completed, carrying water from the Owens Valley to LA. We fast forward to the 1970s, and a vast network of dams and aqueducts had been built, diverting water from the Colorado River and Owens Valley to Los Angeles. The city had managed to meet the needs of growth, but we boxed ourselves into a system dependent upon imported sources, and it's created a multitude of other problems. 80 to 90% of LA's annual water supply is imported from the Colorado River, the Bay Delta, and the Owens River Valley through the LA, California, and Colorado aqueducts. So the first problem, imported water is costly. It comes from over-allocated sources of fresh water, and rates to purchase this water are skyrocketing. Other western states compete with California for water from the same sources, like the Colorado River. As the competition heats up, supplies coming to LA will only shrink. Between 2009 and 2013, the purchase price for imported water increased by 9.4%. And based on their research, Green LA Coalition estimates that the price of imported water will be double that of local water sources. So another problem is that imported water contributes to climate change. The interdependence of water and energy is known as the water-energy nexus, where energy is necessary to treat and transport water from hundreds of miles away. As the largest consumer of energy, water imports account for 20% of all of California's energy use, and it releases 4 million tons of CO2 into the air each year. Our dependence on imported water has also led to ecological collapse. As water is diverted from its source, habitats and delicate ecosystems suffer. The Bay Delta and Owens River Valley have experienced loss of biodiversity and environmental degradation due to drastically lower water levels and a decrease in riparian habitat. Legal restrictions. The Delta's declining ecosystem has led to historic restrictions in water supply deliveries. Court actions that reduce flow from Owens Valley and the Delta for environmental mitigation and dust control measures are in place. Reducing the need to pump water from these areas will reduce environmental damage and will also prevent additional legal action. And risks. So the U.S. Geological Survey estimates a 99% chance that an earthquake with a magnitude of 6.7 will strike the Bay Area within the next 30 years. An earthquake that powerful would lead to levee breaches and catastrophic damage to the system, disrupting delivery to 23 million Californians. So I like to use the Colorado River as an example of how various stressors come together to create a very worrisome future for water supply in the Southwest. The Colorado River was divided and allocated to provide for oasis-like development of the Southwest. Supply has been overestimated by as much as 6 to 7 million acre-feet. This means finding an alternative supply for up to 12 million households in the Southwest. There are no more untapped sources to fill this gap in demand. So, how do we shift our water system to one that is local and reliable? We can implement strategies that enhance local water supply. Strategy 2 harnesses the water that's available to us here. It's the new supply that's always been here. So by 2035, the city is targeted to receive 40 to 50% of supply from local sources, and we'll talk about each of them now. So groundwater recharge. It's an important part of the hydrologic cycle where water comes from the surface and works its way into the subsurface, replenishing groundwater supplies. Currently, LA receives about 11% of its water supply from groundwater sources. It could supply significantly more water, but due to contamination, many groundwater basins in LA have been shut down. Proper disposal of waste is now regulated under the Clean Water Act, but cities across the U.S. are still trying to clean up waste that was dumped dating back to the World War II era. Projects that clean up and recharge will restore this potential supply. Stormwater capture and low-impact development. Land in LA has been developed with hundreds of miles of impermeable surfaces, preventing rainwater from doing its job, which is soaking into the ground to recharge soil and aquifers. This potential source of water runs off the concrete into storm drains and straight into the ocean, where it has picked up pollutants. Low-impact development ought to solve challenges in stormwater management and restore the hydrologic cycle. Through the use of methods like cisterns, rain barrels, and bioswales, rainwater can be captured and stored for later use. Last year, Los Angeles passed the LID ordinance, which requires new development projects to capture the first 3/4 inch of rainwater during a storm event. So here we have Elmer Avenue, a residential street which was redesigned with various methods of low-impact development. And the street now produces the same amount of water used by the residents, which is really cool. Water conservation. Water demand has not increased in the past 25 years despite population growth. This has been maintained through conservation incentive programs, water use restrictions, and public education. Enhanced conservation efforts must be prioritized and must not be cut from basic budget costs. Recycled water. Water recycling is an energy-efficient method of providing water that requires just half the amount of energy that's required to import our water. At different levels of treatment and purification, municipal wastewater can be reused in a variety of ways, mainly for irrigation and industrial uses. Recycled water stretches supply without using costly amounts of potable water. It can be treated to meet potable quality levels and could be a reliable source of drinking water. Gray water, it's slightly used water from bathtubs, sinks, showers, and laundry that is captured and recycled to water landscape and replenish soil. Because gray water is 50 to 80% of a household's wastewater, reuse decreases the amount of wastewater discharge. It also decreases sewer load and saves ratepayers money. Once restricted, now California building codes have been rewritten to allow simple residential gray water systems. So the co-benefits of local water: enhance ecosystem services, provide local jobs, local water control, and water quality benefits. These benefits maximize scarce ratepayer dollars by aiding in solving multiple urban issues. So, I hope you feel like you're not drowning in information. Conversation to have with your friends and family, so I hope you pick up just one little fact and you take this home to your friends and family and have a discussion about where your water comes from. So, thank you.
If you don't mind, while we're setting up, can I do a little energizer with everyone? Can everyone stand up, please? Stand up.
Good idea. Good.
I need you to point in the hand with your opposite hand. So if you're right-handed, point with your left. If you're left-handed, point with your right. And in honor of William's beautiful narrative on graffiti, I want you to tag your name in the air. First and last name, tag it in the air, and give it some style while you're at it. Tag the whole thing. Offhanded. Punctuate it. All right, now see. Thank you. Hello, my name is Daryl Valencia, and my project is Odyssey Orchards. Education for the next generation of ecosystem thinkers. I'm a teacher. I'll get to that a little bit later. So why education? Because it's our most direct link to the future. It's a powerful leverage point for change. And the majority of students today are now educated in public schools, so we need to pay attention to it. So, as I said, I've been teaching for over a decade in the public education system. I get evaluated every year. My schools get evaluated every year. My students get evaluated every year. I think it's time for the education system to get a report card. So that's what my project's about. So this is the question that I'm asking the system, straight up. Are we really educating the next generation of students to be happy, healthy, inspired humans, ready to solve the problems of the world they're going to inherit?
No.
Well, let's talk about the world they're going to inherit. We all know about it. Global warming, economic disparity, food and water insecurity. These are systemic problems, and I don't think we need any more evidence of the urgency of the situation, and I don't think our school system is on track. So, evidence. Here's another question. So our public education system was designed in the context of 19th century industrialism. In fact, it was at the peak of the industrial era in 1850-something that our public education system became law of the land. So can a system designed in the context of industrialism really deal with the realities of the 21st century? I think not. I think in this context, curriculum becomes standardized, learning becomes quantified, and the whole process is homogenized. And again, how can you solve systemic problems with a one-size-fits-all approach to public education? So we have a serious problem. This is the exact opposite of the way students should be being taught, and unfortunately, this is the system we're being taught in. So this cartoon, this is how we evaluate students. We ask them to do the same thing. Climb that tree. That's standardized learning, and it's only making the monkey happy. Case in point, No Child Left Behind Act, originally passed, I think, in 2001, reinstated again under Obama, unfortunately. He just changed the name, race to the top. Here's what it says. By next year, 100% of my students have to score proficient or advanced on their state test. 100%. Proficient or advanced means you have to be getting A/B quality work on your test. So 100% of my students, regardless of their socioeconomic background, regardless of their history, regardless of their backgrounds, they have to come to school and ace that test, or else our school gets no money. That's the world they teach them. So I think we have a system that, by design, has got the whole situation backwards. We're confusing learning with testing, and in the process, we're reducing the possibilities instead of growing them. Einstein said this, and I think it's appropriate for the situation. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that is counted actually counts, unfortunately. So, here's my solution. I'm calling it ecosystems thinking, for lack of a better word. Over the last 4 years, I've developed a curriculum project at my school, Odyssey Charter School, which is a small K-8 public charter school in Altadena, California. Very diverse, about 40% African American, 30% Latino. The rest is a mix. So here's a program I developed for my students. It's my response to the one-size-fits-all approach. I'm going to explain what each of these curricular approaches are in detail, and I'll give you examples of what they look like. You can see I have icons, so as you follow the slides, if you see a little hand, that's hands-on. I didn't know I was going to do that. If you see the little, well, you'll see it. So here's hands-on. Hands-on learning. Here's the question. How are we going to rebuild our communities and retrofit our cities if the majority of students today are graduating school and they never get a chance to swing a hammer or move a wheelbarrow? Or dig their hands in the dirt? And that's the honest truth. When I put my students in front, or put them in the garden and give them a hammer or give them a wheelbarrow, half of them don't know how to use it. So these are some of the hands-on learning projects that I've created with my students over the last 4 years. We built a chicken tractor made with all reclaimed materials that the kids found on campus, 100%. So they built it, we put the chickens in the garden, and now the chickens are doing their thing, and you can move it. It's mobile, so you can move the chickens through the garden where they need to be. We built garden beds. We built it, we grow it, and there's the food, and they can sit on it. The kids wanted a spot not just to grow food, but a place to sit. So you can see they designed benches as well. We did rainwater collection. That's the first pilot. We're going to do many more throughout the campus. The students designed their own garden spirals. Garden spirals, they save space, they save water, they create microclimate, and they seem to attract life of all sorts. So we're really getting into the spirals. Students are right now designing a cob bench. Cob, if you don't know, is It's one of the oldest and most common building materials on the planet. It's basically mud, sand, and straw. And so we're designing a bench. This is you sandbag it, you cover it with chicken wire, and then you put plaster over it. So this is the bench in our garden. It's going to sit right in front of the theater that we also built. So that's hands-on learning. Now we're going to talk about ecologically based learning. This is the second criteria of my curriculum project. And this is simple. It's basically learning through and with nature. It's the ultimate teacher. So the idea is that I tell my students, you're going to learn more from the natural systems you are in than any other teacher you will ever encounter. So these are some of the ecologically based learning projects that I've done with my students. We planted a food forest at my school, over 40 fruit trees to accelerate the successional qualities of the garden. So we're not just planting annuals, we're planting trees so that there's shade, so that there's food year-round, and of course beauty. Keyhole gardens, students get to experiment with the natural patterns found in the garden. This is just one pattern that they came up with. Again, it creates microclimate, it creates edge, it looks beautiful. We harvest food, and then we cook it, and we eat it. Obviously, that's what the garden's for. This is the abundance of agriculture at the school, and so the students get to experience the fruits of their labor. Abundance. Students get to reap the rewards of their own engineered ecology. So we have chickens, they get to harvest the chicken eggs. So these are the lessons through ecologically based learning that the students get to experiment with. Earth Day, we just did this a couple weeks ago. We sheet mulched the entire quarter-acre orchard to improve the soil quality. So, it looks kind of crazy. It's a lot of cardboard, it's a lot of piles of crap, and it's a lot of soil. But it brought all 400 students to the garden, and they got to throw down some soil and see how you actually improve the fertility of the ground, because I tell my students, you don't grow food, you grow soil, and then food is a byproduct of soil.
Nice.
So the third criteria of ecosystems thinking is, I call it exploratory learning. And this is really simple. It's basically give students unstructured time, give them raw materials, and let their imaginations take effect. I don't tell them what to do. I give them time once a week, maybe twice a week, to go out in the orchard. And they get to explore with what they have. So, for example, I left out a bunch of blocks of wood, and they built these castles on the deck, just on their own. It's exploratory. It's the idea of, I'm not going to tell you what to do, I'm just going to give you the time and the space and the resources to do it. A quote by Christopher Alexander kind of illustrates the point. I'm not going to read it though. We don't live, but our school is right next to the arroyo, so I take my students hiking out into the arroyo, down into the river as often as possible, with no other purpose but to explore. Again, the idea of exploratory learning is that it's unstructured and you come to terms with the world on your own terms, not by the teacher's terms. Discovery. So just a couple weeks ago, my students were out watering and they discovered you can take nasturtium plants and fold the cups up, the leaves, and it creates little cups of water. They wouldn't have discovered that in the textbook, and they wouldn't have discovered that from me. I never knew that. They discovered that on their own. And this is discovery, this is exploratory learning. Okay, the fourth criteria is called connected learning. And this is basically interdisciplinary teaching, interdisciplinary learning. The idea that in any situation, all subjects are already present if you could find them, if you could discover them. I use theater arts as the subject that combines all subjects, as the art that combines all arts. So every year we do a play in the garden. 3 years ago we did Romeo and Juliet. Students performed it in the garden. 2 years ago we did Macbeth. These are middle school students doing Shakespeare in the garden. Last year we did Alice in Wonderland in the orchard. And this show we decided we were going to take it over the top. We did a zero waste supper. We fed all 200 people who came to the show with food from the garden.
Wow.
And, the students got to grow the garden, perform in the garden, and then feed their friends and family with food from the garden. So that was a nice event. We make books. They use them for poetry and observation in the garden. Game theory redesign. Gilda, I took this one right out of your playbook. Students need to learn how to play, redesign, and then replay their own games. And so this is another curriculum project that I brought to my students. System diagrams, allowing my students to observe their local ecosystem, make system diagrams of what they see, and then put it on the wall as a collage. So you can see that every student sees their local ecosystem totally differently. The criteria was the same, but this is what they came back with. And the wall was much bigger, but that's as big as my camera can get. So here's the future plans of my project. Elizabeth, we're going to be selling at the market. Look for us. We'll be the booth with the lowest carbon footprint because we can walk to the market. That's how close we are.
The shortest people.
We're going to do a school-wide composting program. We're already doing that right now to reduce the waste out of our school. I'm threatening to open up a high school someday called a nomadic high school. The idea behind this is that we use the city and our local ecosystem as the classroom.
Yes.
It's nomadic. And then I have a website that I created for educators, if I could find it, which, here it is. If you are an educator or not, I created a website that documents all of this, and it's kind of a resource for anyone who's interested in what we're doing in education, which is to change it. So that's my project.
Wonder.
While Jane's doing that, I want everyone here to know that Daryl is the most innovative teacher and received an award for that, and is so humble and is such an inspiration to all of us in working in food system.
So how's everyone doing this evening?
Yeah.
All right, lovely to have you all here. So my name is Julia O. Casillas, and this evening I will be presenting on my thesis, Love, Neoliberalism, and Survival, the Salvadoran Remittance Economy, Catch-22. So I'm going to start with a little anecdote that I opened my thesis with, just to give you a little insight into what brought me to what I see as the problem. My mom and aunt carefully arranged a variety of items into a box that could easily fit a refrigerator. With bags of rice, pasta, and cereal, bottles of shampoo, cooking oil, and detergent, shoes, household appliances, and notebooks, the box seems like a mishmash of everyday shopping cart items and someone's moving bin. They have paid the $250 fee, and tomorrow morning, Florist Express will haul it away. Destination, Grandma and Auntie's house in the outskirts of San Salvador, El Salvador. ETA, about a month. They seal the box shut, and I wonder, how did we get here? The back and forth between our family in El Salvador and our family in Los Angeles is actually nothing new. Growing up, lovingly wrapped packages of food, handwritten letters, and long-distance phone calls have connected our families across long distances and form a special part of my earliest memories. When family or close friends returned from El Salvador, we would gather around the dining room table to open hand-delivered goodies wrapped in brown butcher paper sent by our family. My grandma would send us kids leather shoes for going to school in disbelief that they could be made as well in the States. She would send my dad handmade riguas, they're like sweet corn cakes, to be eaten with fresh cheese. My mother handled the letters, sharing the most recent pictures of my cousins and aunts with each of us. In short, my childhood imbued a reality in which family members who were not physically present still occupied a very real presence in my life. In the 1990s, however, we started stuffing small amounts of money in envelopes to be couriered to our family in El Salvador by friends, whatever friend or family member was going next. By the late 1990s, however, this money was no longer a little gift, a welcome surprise to our family in El Salvador. It was a necessity that grew and always seemed to become more urgent. The word was that the economy was bad. There were no jobs, and the prices of goods and services were skyrocketing, to the point that it became cheaper to send goods directly to our family. As a young adult, I became aware that our family was not alone in this predicament. This is my personal starting point for what was to become my thesis. I wanted to know how it was possible to send more money
more frequently, only to see things get worse? This is the question that was burning inside me before I ever considered the Salvadoran economy and remittances in an academic setting. For millions of families around the globe, household sustainability strategies entail migration, family separation, and sending money to loved ones. For many families affected by migration, family survival becomes transnational in scope. According to a report published by the World Bank last year, there were approximately 250 million migrants around the world, and worldwide, migrants sent $325 billion to family in developing countries in 2011. You're going to hear me use the word remittances, and remittances is simply the term that economic analysts use to refer to the money that migrants send to their loved ones in the countries they left behind. This evening, I will discuss remittances within the Salvadoran context, then within the broader Latin American context. I will discuss the role neoliberalism has played in making remittances a necessary strategy for survival among Salvadoran families. My final discussion will be which is the primary focus of my thesis, is a conceptual framework that I developed called the vicious cycle of remittances. So as you can see, remittances to Latin America as a whole grew exponentially in the past 25 years. Basically, that's 1980 all the way to 2005, and we're talking in dollars in the billions right here. So El Salvador may be one of Latin America's smallest countries. It's about the size of Massachusetts, but approximately $3.8 billion per year go to El Salvador, and it's from migrants. So El Salvador receives more remittances than the vast majority of Latin American countries, and I mean it's a little speck on the Central American isthmus. Thank you. Sorry, I just got thrown off by the minute.